Welcome in to Shoot the Gap, the IDP podcast for the Fantasy and Frames Podcast Network. I am your host, Nate Markham. With me, as always, is Jorge Edwards. Jorge, how are you this week, my friend?
I'm still rocking and reeling from the coverage we had of round one of the draft. Specifically speaking, Mike Wohlert being related to our own Tyler Heil, that is blowing me away still. I'm doing fine otherwise.
Yes.
How are you, Nate?
I'm doing. Thank you for asking. No one ever asked the host how they're doing it. They're left out. I'm doing really good. I'm not related to anybody on screen, so that kind of sucks. But who is related to one of our other writers, podcast co-host friend Tyler Heil is Mike Wohlert. Mike, welcome in. Sorry we couldn't have you last week, but I would say better late than never holds true.
Last week I was on. Are you talking about the first?
The first, yes.
The gap. I was about to say, okay, yeah, no, that's fine. You know, some family things came up, and gotta do what the family says. So
Sure.
But happy to be here. I can't believe the draft is now a week old, and next thing you know, we will be OTAs and training camp, and we will be gearing up for another season. It feels like the Super Bowl just ended a couple of weeks ago, and here we are, draft talk. OTAs, all that stuff.
It's just me, or is like the combine becoming like a distant memory now? Like I know people like use the metrics and whatnot, but like for me, my mind is like Super Bowl and some stuff, and then free agency. Boom. Like that's at least my process. I don't know if that's common for everybody else, though.
No, I will say that I used to take the combine a little bit more as gospel, like following through and watching every event. I think with more information being readily available, also surrounding myself with people like you guys, makes it easier for me to grasp exactly who the players are coming in, a little bit about what their skill set is without having to rely on the combine nearly as much. And I don't want to also go without saying that not able to join us this week, who's on a beautiful vacation, is Hollywood Titan. He will join us again next week for episode 3. But this is episode 2. This episode is going to be the draft fallout. We're going to break this down into a couple different sections, look position by position. We'll start with the first position work your way inside out as teams do build. And we'll start with the defensive line, defensive tackle, edge. And guys, the first time since 1991, 5 defensive players were the first 5 picks of the NFL draft. We're doing it. We are moving defense forward. Defense wins championships. Defense. How excited were you guys that stupid offense had to take a back seat to us?
Well, I was happy. Well, I think the reason why is because there were no elite quarterbacks to talk about. So, and this was like the first time in a while there really wasn't. I mean, there really wasn't almost a consensus. I mean, yeah, Aiden Hutchinson was probably number 1, but then, you had Walker coming up, but there was no elite quarterback. So when you don't have an elite quarterback, everything's in play.
Mm-hmm. I love how it showed, especially with, the number 1 overall pick, who we'll get into in a little bit. Just goes to show how much we really know. Because weeks and weeks heading into the draft, it's like, it's Hutchinson, it's Thibodeau, it's Hutchinson, it's Thibodeau, and Walker. I hear some rumor that the GM for the Jags might like him. And then you enter draft night, and it's like, well, there he goes. But it is amazing, the talent and just how good these players are. I think, IDP and the defense kind of takes a backseat, and I don't think it should, to offense. But that being said, I don't think people have grasped just how good these players are and how they're going to help their, the fan base's respective teams here. Mm-hmm. And obviously that's great for IDP.
Yeah. I can't believe the galaxy braining involved for all of these things. For me, it was pretty simple who seemed to be the best players. And if I was Jacksonville, Trayvon Walker would not have been my pick at number 1. That is for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it was obviously in 2 years from now, maybe this year, maybe 3 years, we'll see exactly how galaxy brain some of these teams were if we had our finger on the pulse with some of these players. But it is interesting to see some of the slips. I mean, obviously we saw it across the board. You talked about it, Mike, and I think that's exactly right. it is the most chaotic draft I can remember to date because there was no consensus. And then even the consensus that we thought we knew Malik Willis might be the only quarterback taken in round one. Maybe there was, or surefire first round, Kenny Pickett might've been one. And then they start slipping to the 50th pick, 60th pick, and everything went kind of crazy. All in all, there were 48 defensive linemen or edge players drafted total. And I mean, that to me, like I've said, that's a testament to the growing need position. Every team starting to get a little more pass happy. You got to get at the quarterback. We've seen it. And guess what? Every team that picked in the top 10 having, together, they all sucked against getting to the quarterback. None of them had good pressure rates. None of them had that explosive end, or at least multiple. And you get behind. And I thought that what a good way to break out episode 2, or really kind of a episode 1 of true content post-draft, we'll say. We had our pre-draft Shoot the Gap episode 1. This is post-draft episode 1, but technically 2. A little confusing for people just joining. But let's look at the first 3 rounds of the draft. Instead of getting too super deep with some of these players, we can look a little bit further, and let's see what their impact on IDP will be. We're mostly redraft, but if we want to talk a little dynasty as well, we can spread our wings. What was from the other guys? What is it? Mark
Wahlberg? Peacock, Captain. You gotta let me fly.
Exactly. I'm a peacock. God, I love that movie. I was listening to Sirius XM today, and they had their top 5, the most underrated comedy movies. And finally, someone said The Other Guys, and I think it was Jeff Mans. So I wish Jeff would listen, because I would tell you, Jeff, you were spot on. Let's jump right in, guys. Let's take a look at the top 3. Let's clump them all together. Trayvon Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau. Mike, who do you think would be the best option of the 3? If you had to choose, you're 101 in the draft that you're taking one of these 3, avoiding a linebacker, if that would be your one. Redraft leagues, who are you looking for?
I'm probably going to go with Hutchinson. He walks into where he's one of the guys that's going to have to get the volume right away. Plus a Michigan guy, and he seems to be a bite the kneecap type of a guy for Dan Campbell. So I think he fits right in to that defense and kind of does everything really well. Run defense, pass rush, actually pretty decent in coverage but hopefully that's not what they do. But I mean, that's what I'm going for. He had the production in Michigan, and that should match over in the pros. I mean, I think he had 13 sacks. He was credited with 68 pressures, 9 quarterback hits, didn't miss tackles, played over 650 snaps, almost 670 snaps. So I think that production is just going to translate to the NFL. Now, in terms of his redraft projections, I'm not going to say you can expect this kid to have 15 sacks right out of the gate as a rookie, but he's going to get the volume of snaps, and I'm probably going to have him projected probably around 7 or 8. But that's who I'm taking as my first rookie defensive lineman in redraft.
7 or 8 from a rookie on a team that's most likely going to be behind in games is, I think people will see that and say, oh, that's it. I think that's a testament just to how good Aiden Hutchinson really is, because if you let's look at the Lions as a whole. They were 30th in the NFL last year with 30 sacks, and Charles Harris was pretty much their only source of production. Yep. Here's a funny fact. I wrote about this over at Fantasy and Frames on my defensive line fallout, is that if you add up Julian Okwara, Romeo Okwara, and Austin Bryant's total pressures, it would equal in combined 1 short of what Charles Harris's was, which was 52, 16 short of what Aiden Hutchinson did last year in college. I know it's in college, but still immediate impact, much needed, and definitely will be someone that I know I'm going to watch and root for. Jorge, of the 3 here, if you had to avoid or were just worried about immediate returns, results, I think I know the answer already, but who are you maybe hedging your bets on?
So for me, it's Trayvon Walker. Mike, you brought it up earlier, and he would not have been your number 1 overall pick. And when I was digging into the numbers between the 3 of these guys, Mike, you mentioned Aiden Hutchinson. In passing situations, he had the 4th best win rate. He had the 11th best win rate in run stopping situations. Kayvon Thibodeau, number 3 win rate in passing situations. This is, of course, playing with a minimum of 100 snaps played against the run or the pass. He was great against the run, Thibodeau. Number 6 in run stopping percentage. Trayvon Walker, number 76 against the pass. Not great. Number 32 against the run. Not great. I'm sure he's an athletic. Obviously, I'm sure he's an athletic. He's an NFL player. Where am I trying to go with this? What I'm trying to go with this is I'm sure he has some talent there that maybe the GMs are seeing and the scouts and the talent evaluators are seeing in Jacksonville that he could do something. Pair him with Josh Allen on the other side of this defensive line. I still am not a Josh Allen, fan. He's okay in terms of win percentage against offensive linemen. Nothing to boast about per se, but he did have some good games last season. Maybe they're hoping that the two of them together can do something great, but I just think the upside is higher with Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau.
I agree. And if we want to talk about a dynasty aspect, it's obviously hard. I mean, for me, and you guys tell me if we have to rank the order of where we think dynasty lineman would go, my order would go Hutchinson, Thibodeau, Trayvon Walker. Mike, what would your order go if you had to?
If we had to have if we have these 3, I honestly don't have Walker in my top 3 in terms of overall defensive line rankings. So it's just I mean, when I'm reading that, we like this. When I read Trent Baalke saying, love this kid, has good athletic traits, still needs a lot of work. Why are you taking a guy that needs a lot of work number 1 overall? When you look at just strict IDP production, potential IDP production, stripping out all of the advanced metrics that you're looking, the win rate and the pressure rate and all that. The pressure rate was low, so that's not going to translate. And when you have a low pressure rate and a low win rate, it doesn't translate to production. Right. 6 sacks. 33 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss. He had 1 sack the previous year, 2.5 in 2019.
But Mike, he has 35.5-inch arms.
So great. So when it comes to fantastic. He's not doing anything with them.
He's
got like 1 move, and
good job, Josh Allen.
He's got 1 move, and he's maybe 2, and as soon as it gets picked up by the offensive lineman, he's screwed. So when looking at my top 3, I mean, in redraft, I think I got him 6th. For redraft. So he doesn't even crack my top 3.
And I hope that we're wrong for this young man's stake. I hope he develops into that uber athlete. And I know you do. I think we all do. None of us want to see these guys fail. I mean, but we just have to look at what we had. And I'm looking at a Georgia line that was stacked with 15 draft picks. I mean, that's going to make a lot of people look better. Yet he didn't get better. He didn't have the production. I'm going to say the one thing I noticed too about Trayvon Walker is that he has the ability to play any position. And with the Jags leading the league in missed tackles, I think maybe that was one of their focus because, he didn't miss tackles. He had a 5% missed tackle rate in college. Yeah. So maybe that was their focus.
Maybe it's last year.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the reason. Jorge, do you have anything to add to this?
To answer your question, in terms of where I would rank these two, I mean, shocker, Walker would be the last one. But I'd actually, for dynasty purposes, I'm more interested in Kayvon Thibodeau than Hutchinson. I think Hutchinson, you're getting what you're getting, which is a pass rusher. You're not really asking this guy to do too much other than just pin his earbacks and go after the quarterback. Thibodeau at least has some versatility to his game. Yeah, he's a better run stopper than Hutchinson. He's a better in terms of win rates. And I just see him being utilized more. You had Aziz Ohalari last year, the rookie, show some flashes here, but I don't think I wasn't blown away, I guess, by maybe some of the other analysts are out there by what he has to offer, which tells me, Thibodeau is probably going to be asked to do more in defensive situations. So for the long term, give me Thibodeau, and in redraft also Thibodeau.
Gotcha. So the first round, what we saw obviously is the lead in with the edge rushers. Offense was sprinkled in here and there. Obviously some interior offensive and defensive linemen. But as we get to the bottom of the first round, I saw 2 guys' names I saw a ton of mocks where Jermaine Johnson II had slipped. I mean, he had worked his way up as far as some of the mocks I had seen and to be in a top 10 potential pick. There were talks that he might have been maybe not the number 1 pick overall, but he could have easily swapped out Trayvon Walker's spot 3 weeks ago prior to the draft and the hype, inflation. And George Karlaftis is another one who slipped down. I'm happy for the Chiefs standpoint of getting him, but more Jermaine Johnson than Karlaftis. But I look at the two different players as a whole, and I see two different, if I wrote a review on them of who the player was, and I would say, obviously Jermaine Johnson to me has the higher upside, a little more athletically, and yet George Karlaftis is the high motor guy. And I ask you, Jorge, if you were looking at from an IDP standpoint and you're trying to do your projections and you're looking at your ceiling and or your floor, would you rather have the high upside guy athletically, or are you looking for the high motor for your projections?
So it depends on what type of league we're talking about. If I'm doing a straight redraft league, one and done, give me the guy with the the higher upside with the higher ceiling. I'm banking on him producing fantasy points for me that'll somehow get me to a fantasy title. For dynasty though, give me the guy that has the higher motor. Maybe he needs some work, needs some polish here and there, but at least there's some like steady longevity on my dynasty roster that I can count on versus the fluctuations for year to year to year.
No, that makes sense. And speaking of these two, though, Mike, you mentioned earlier, you said that Trayvon would be out of your top 3. Do either of these two work their way into your top 3 or into your upside play over any one of the 3 that we just mentioned?
Yeah, I think I actually DM'd somebody earlier this week about my top 5, top 6, but I would have probably Karlaftis, probably number 3, maybe number 4. My only concern is the fact that KC brought back Melvin Ingram. Did they bring him back for a 1-year deal, 2-year deal?
They haven't brought him back yet. There's Steve Spagnuolo and company have said that there is a good chance that they will bring him back, but he has not signed back yet.
So it's not official yet. Okay.
Not official yet.
So I've currently still have Karlaftis as probably my number 3. I think he's kind of a play anywhere type of a guy. You can, but I think you just basically just let him stand up, let him get a full head of steam, and just let him beat the offensive lineman. I think he's another guy that just needs to establish a few different moves. He can raise anybody up, but he needs to have a few different moves. And I think I've got Jermaine Johnson as my 5th edge. The Jets are weird. Sometimes pass rushers kind of go to die in New York with the Jets. I mean, Carl Lawson, hopefully he'll be back ready to go. So if he's ready to go, that'll certainly help him. Keenan Williams is still there. So he's actually joining a pretty decent defensive line there in New York. So I think I like, I still have Jermaine Johnson slightly higher than Walker. Can still do a lot, decent win rate. I think he had was credited with 46 pressures, and has the sack production. I mean, you're playing in the ACC, so you're playing some decent competition. So it's not like he was getting off against scrubs. So
right.
I think within that division, I think he'll have a chance to get some production. So I do like Johnson's game a little bit too.
Yeah, no matter what the Jets. I'm sorry, Ray, go right ahead.
No, finish your thought, please.
Just tacking on with Jermaine Johnson. Obviously, I want to say awesome. That's great to hear with George Karlaftis. Want to hear that. What my concern, of course, is like you mentioned with Melvin Ingram. At that point, maybe a little bit more rotational pieces. Jermaine Johnson, there could be rotational pieces. John Franklin Myers could step in between him and Sheldon Rankins. But at the end of the day, Jermaine Johnson does one thing extremely well that I think the Jets will take advantage of is he stops the run extremely well, which is he was 21st last year in most run tackles in NCAA. He was top 32 in missed tackle rate, or at least the fewest missed tackles with at least 200 snaps. He only had a 6.4% missed tackle rate. So key, I would say, attributes can keep him on the field a little bit longer too than even some of the guys. For him to slip where he did, the Jets just had an awesome draft.
Yeah, they took advantage of some bad drafting along with Baltimore.
Yes, they did. Jorge?
We got a question here, or we got a comment here from Gator_J over on YouTube. He says he got Dean at 211, Thibodeau at 301, and Walker at 402. It's funny. You flip Thibodeau and Dean, and that's like how I would rank them in Dynasty.
Yeah.
Like the progression of like Thibodeau ready to go. Dean, maybe he's a year away from injury. And then Walker, once he's fully developed, he has hopefully his upside, if you're a Jaguars fan. That's a pretty interesting haul he has there, right?
It'd be interesting to see who the linebackers were when he took Dean. If it was an all IDP draft, then obviously that's probably pretty good value. But I'd be interested to see like if this was mixed or if it were all IDP and the linebackers that went before Dean, because 211, Dean is probably the second or third linebacker that probably got drafted if you're at 211. Yeah. And it's still a little, I don't know, something about Dean that I like the spot he's in. I'm hoping he plays and I'm hoping he's healthy, but I still think, I know we're not talking linebackers yet, but I still think there's a few that I would still take before Dean. So it'd be interesting to see who went before.
Well, I think the one thing that Dean definitely has, there's no doubt about this, is he has a front line in front of him that is absolutely stacked. Yeah. And when you're talking stacked, we have, a rotation that is just incredible. And one of the first round draft picks taken was a defensive tackle
playing behind and he'll be playing behind his teammate
by the name of Godzilla. My favorite pick, maybe not for the team, but the person who I just, you grab a hold of a person and you go, I hope the best for him. And I love watching Jordan Davis. He was, just the absolute freak of all freaks. And he goes to a team that's already stout against the run. So he's not going to be asked to do a ton. This rotation between Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Derek Barnett, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, and it's not a rotation with all of them at every position, but you get what I'm saying.
And Reddick. They added his son Reddick.
Absolutely. Exactly.
I'm a huge fan of Kaiser White. I think he's very underrated.
One year deal though.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? He better prove it.
Yeah.
We all like Davion Taylor last year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Dean, if he's healthy, he's an athletic freak. And he's by far much more athletic than Kazir and TJ Edwards.
Yeah, I'm sad because it's TJ Edwards is likely the one who would be cut out of this linebacking core, and of course, the name connection because we're family, because everybody who's named Edwards is related.
They're all related.
Wink. And if you're watching and listening, please hook me with some tickets. I'm just kidding.
God, you mooch. Jeez.
I know, right?
Oh, Lord, all I was doing is asking Jordan Davis for an autograph and a jersey. Maybe you're getting tickets, but Jordan Davis, Devonte White, two defensive tackles. We all know IDP leagues. We're not exactly hyper focused on defensive tackle unless it's accentuated to improve defensive tackle. If you give a defensive tackle a bonus, 2 points for every solo tackle or whatever the premium scoring may be. But in most general IDP leagues, do either of these two possess any like qualities or situational opportunities that it would have an impact? Jorge, do you see one of these two as someone that you're going to focus on?
I see. Wow, this is so sacrilegious of me. I see like a Jordan Davis or a Devonte White as like the Moses of a defense. Like they're parting the Red Sea of offensive players, and then they're just funneling everybody on either side towards the offensive line, towards the quarterback or towards the running back. Not everyone's Aaron Donald. I don't know if that's a groundbreaking analysis that everybody was hoping to hear tonight.
Aaron Donald, that was number 99, right, for the Rams?
Yeah, he may have come up clutch in the Super Bowl. I don't know. I heard
we don't all know who he is. Some people don't.
No. Yeah, exactly. Wait and see. But I would not be targeting a defensive tackle in any of my leagues early on. Or
Mike. So about Devonte White, Jorge mentioned part of the Red Sea as he's now being stricken down by the Lord. If Devonte White's playing more on the end with Kenny Clark in the middle, does he have? Does Green Bay? The situation of that 3-4, does he have enough upside at all to be drafted in any IDP league you're in?
I mean, obviously, if you're in a defensive tackle required league, yes. I think he's got a good step for someone his size. I mean, he had 7 sacks last year. Or I'm sorry, no, I'm looking at tackles for loss. He had 7 tackles for loss. He had 39 tackles, so he's right around the line of scrimmage. I'm sorry, he had 2.5 sacks. If he had 7 sacks, I don't think I think it would be a little bit different. But yeah, sadly, flip the things around. But and he can get to the quarterback. But yeah, he's a behemoth up the middle. But yeah, he's gonna be taking up blocks for the linebackers and the linebackers behind him to keep clean. But good situation playing opposite Kenny Clark. So I think he's going to probably play a little bit more kind of that. I think he's probably going to play a little bit more B gap over the guard, that's where he flourished. And even over tackle, he didn't do too bad either. So I think he's going to be a little bit over the left tackle, maybe over the right tackle. But he's probably going to be playing more of that B gap right in the guard. So he's probably going to be taking on blocks, but he certainly has the hands. He's got the girth. He's got a good step that I think can rival some of the guards that they're not going to expect this behemoth of a man to have a quick step. So I think in terms of redraft, I probably would favor Wyatt. I think with the Eagles are probably going to be in a little bit more of a rotation on the inside. I think you're going to see some Fletcher Cox, more Javon Hargrave. I still think Davis is going to come in, but I think for Dynasty, I'm taking Davis over Wyatt. Fletcher Cox last year, I think, on his deal. So I think they obviously drafted him to be his replacement. So 2023 is probably where you're going to start seeing some of the fruits of those labor. But yeah, that's who I would probably have as my 2. And I really like the situation Travis Jones ended up in Baltimore. Once again, Baltimore just taking advantage of bad drafting.
8. I mean, Ozzie Newsome, I know might not be the person handing the card anymore, but somehow he has his hand on the card when it goes in. It's incredible. And I know the name of our show is Shoot the Gap, and you would think with us talking big defensive tackles shooting that A or B gap, it'd be somebody we'd attract to, but unfortunately IDP scoring does not necessarily gravitate towards that way. Jorge, did you see that Gator J mentioned that it is not all IDP scoring for his league? Devin Lloyd went at 111, Hutch went at 204, Hamilton at 207. So at that point, I can understand maybe, especially if this is maybe even a dynasty format too, where you see Nakobe Dean eventually working his way into an every down role. And at that point with Philly, I mean, hell, we've seen them make a lot of solid IDP contributors that have a third of the skill set. Looking at you, Alex Singleton. Looking at you, Nate Gary.
Michael Bauer's favorite linebacker, Nate Gary.
Yes. Michael, in case you're listening, this is episode number 218 in a row that we have mentioned your name and or Nathan Gary. R.I.P. Nathan Gary. And it is Dynasty. So good enough. Keep us posted, Gator. And what a great – we just talked about the other guys. His name's Gator. Gator's bitches better be wearing Jimmy hats. And
Gator needs his gat too.
Gator needs his gat. The Atlanta Falcons need a pass rush, and they got one.
There's no conscience in the pimp game.
There's no
can't have a conscience in the pimp game.
You can't. He's not a pimp though. He's not
I love how we all love this movie. Can reference it like that. That's great.
Exactly. Transitioning from pimp games and to Atlanta Falcons, the dirty Arnold Ebiketie landed with the Falcons, who, if you ask me, were in desperate need of an edge rusher because, with Fowler being gone, went to Dallas. Jorge, you think, do we see Arnold Ebiketie stepping right into that role and actually having serious production from day one?
Oh, yeah, he was one of the top pass rushers in terms of win rate in all of the Power 5 schools in college football. So absolutely, Lorenzo Carter was brought in there, I think, on a one-year deal or a short-term deal. And for me, I was thinking Dynasty for, a good chunk of the spring here up until May 2nd, because the name that was coming out of Atlanta, even though he played in limited basis, was James Vaughners. And he only played in 10 games last year. And I thought to myself, this is somebody that nobody's heard of. And you know what? They're not going to hear about him because the Falcons released him earlier this month. So by default, it's going to be our Ebiketie to the rescue.
It's nice when you get by default situations for players when they're getting drafted onto a team.
The two sweetest words in the English language: default.
Default. Exactly. I'll take it.
And by a Simpsons reference in case anybody needs to know.
I got you.
All right, cool. All right.
I am smart. SMRT. Who else is smart? SMRT, if you ask me, would be drafters maybe looking at dynasty format for Boye Mafe and David Ojabo, and early second day picks. For me, I noticed that Boye Mafe was one of the fastest risers because the Chiefs kept getting mentioned with his name, and I kept reading more and more about it. But David Ojabo, honestly, you go back a year, and there was talks of him being the number 1 overall pick coming out of Michigan. I mean, he was as advertised. And of course, the injury is going to drop him down quite a bit. We don't know exactly the recovery where he's at. I mean, we have an idea that he should play this year, but my question, for me is, will Mafe get a crack early at the edge position, or is that path crowded? And I could ask you two the same thing. My thing is that I think he has the ability to take that job. Maybe is that week 4, week 5 from day one. I can't say 100% because what I see Shelby Harris comes over. They've got, Darrell Taylor on the edge. They've got Quentin Jefferson and Puda Ford in the middle. And then you have, depending upon where they're wanting to put Mafe, do either one of you guys think they actually try him at outside linebacker, or do you think he stays strictly on the defensive line?
I think that he stays on the defensive line. They brought in Uchenna Nwosu from the Chargers. Mm-hmm. Not really a big fan of his. I would think that the Seahawks, being in rebuild mode, kind of just want to see what they have in all their pieces, and I think Mafe is probably going to get the start sooner rather than later.
Mike, any different opinions on Mafe?
No, they let a few guys go off the edge, and I think they're just going to need to. Looking at draft capital, second round pick, I think you're going to need to see what you have. I think they're going to want to see what you have, and I think I like Mafe. I think they can play him as a Sam if they wanted to. I think you can stand him up and just let him rush. So, but I think they're probably going to keep him on the edge, and I think that's just let him use his hands. I think you can put him on the edge as like the kind of like a wide 9 on the edge. Let him get a head start and let him get to the quarterback.
Yeah, Gator, please keep us posted. I realize that his reference is not entirely to the other guys. So change your avatar or your thing to an other guy's reference, and we will give you IDP info nonstop all year round. It's going to be here anyway, but congratulations on your first IDP draft. I hope you an excellent season. Maybe some of the other guys in the same draft, where did David Ojabo go? That would be a question that I would ask for a lot of people. And I ask both you guys this. Mike, I'll start with you. Mm-hmm. When he gets healthy, do you think he has an impact? Because again, if this is the Baltimore Ravens hype fest, we're going to keep it going because again, you have a team that has Derek Wolfe long in the tooth, Michael Pierce, Calais Campbell, none of which are spring chickens, and Owe on the other side, or maybe teaching him, who was a first round pick from last year, but Ojabo could be. Is it crazy to say that at the end of next year he could be the number 1 edge rusher out of this class?
Okay, well, I'm trying to temper expectation with some of these rookies, so I'm not going to go ahead and say that. I think he's definitely going to redshirt probably this year, so I'm not really counting on him at all this year. You still got Tyus Bowser on one of there. Always still there, obviously, but I'm not scared off by the Achilles, and I'd certainly take him for dynasty purposes. So, like when you talk number 1, are you talking number 1 edge rusher of the class by the end of next year? I don't know. You're still coming off an Achilles, and we still need to see how it affects his movement, his get off the snap, his bend, all that stuff. So it's still still remains to be seen. It certainly has the upside for it. I really liked him, and I don't like Michigan. So one thing I'll say right for me, I'm Cleveland. I may not be an Ohio State fan, but I hate Michigan and I hate Pittsburgh, but I will try to be as objective as I possibly can. Ojabo was a fantastic pass rusher, and it was a damn shame to see him tear his Achilles on his pro day. But I'm not the way these kids are recovering from Achilles.
Right.
Cam Akers set the bar, and I'm not expecting anybody to be ready from an Achilles after 6 months. I'm not scared off of it. I think they're gonna be very careful. I don't think they're gonna rush him. They've got plenty of pieces on the defensive line and on the edge that they can use, and let Ojabo just get healthy and let him rehab and let him get ready for next year. So really solid pressure rate last season, almost 15%, had 11 sacks and 7 quarterback hits. He has good hands. I think he forced 5 fumbles throughout his entire career at Michigan. So he's going to be one of those guys that when he gets to the quarterback, he's going to be forcing fumbles and getting those strip sacks.
Yeah, I was a little curious to see if any team was really willing to trade up, or if it was Detroit staying put at 32 and actually drafting him at the end of the first, just so they get that extra year of eligibility, where they could then know they're not wait, because you draft him and you're giving up a year basically. We're going to say this year is kind of going to be gone. Now maybe
it's a
he
red
might
shirt
get
year.
in,
But
yeah, and so I thought that might be a possibility, but I get it. There's risk. There was so many good players still at the end of the first. There was so many great players in this draft towards the second as far as edge rushers, and I want to clump them all together. You have Josh Pascal, D. Williams, or Drake Jackson, and Nick Benito, and we can all. I mean, of those 4, they all have a muddy path, or not exactly the clearest path to snaps, but who do you guys think has the clearest path? Who would you say would make the most impact this year? Jorge, I'll start with you.
To paraphrase a song from the early 2000s,
don't chase Waterfalls.
I'm not sorry, Miss Jackson. Your son is for real. The Outcast, nobody.
Oh, I'm familiar. I want to start singing it.
Fair enough. Drake Jackson, for me, I look at these players and I think about, okay, who's lining up opposite of them, who can draw attention away from them, give them more one-on-one opportunities. I mean, it doesn't get much better than Nick Bosa, right? Obviously, you have Armstead still there, but this guy was a second-round pick for a reason. I see him stepping into a starting role pretty soon. Maybe not this year, but definitely next year. He may be more of a rotational piece as he gets his legs underneath him. I will say, though, Nick Benito currently listed on our lights behind the depth chart of Bradley Chubb. You look at Bradley Chubb over the course of his career, not exactly the most reliable when it comes to playing a whole season. In fact, I think he's only played 16 games his rookie year when he was paired with Von Miller, and both of those guys had double-digit sacks. Last year, I think he only played 7 games. I mean, at a certain point, if you're the Broncos, you have to ask yourself, okay, I get it. He's super talented, but he's just not reliable. Do we give this guy, Benito, an opportunity? I don't know. I don't think it's as far-fetched as maybe some might think. At least maybe this year it is, but going forward, I don't think it's as far-fetched.
Yeah, Benito was definitely, I think, the best one-trick pony in the draft. I think he was strictly a pass rusher. I mean, and he's really good at it. But you had to find a team that they're comfortable. And Denver's a great fit for a team that exclusively just wants to let him pin his ears back and get at it. Mike, any of those guys besides do you have any songs that relate to any of these guys? And I will only accept your answer in song form. Doesn't have to be Outcast, but it does have to be from 1994 to 2001. Go.
Well, with Benito, I guess I'll reference the STP song "The Big Empty" because I don't know. He with Chubb being not healthy, there's still kind of a muddled path to snaps in Denver because you've got a bunch of guys in Denver that are going to probably play. So I don't mind. I don't mind Pascal's landing spot. And I don't mind Sam Williams' landing spot in Dallas. They just have a mishmash of everybody together. You got DeMarcus Lawrence. They let Randy Gregory get away, who's over in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in Dante Fowler from an unproductive pass rushing team. Durant's Armstrong, Terrell Basham. So I don't mind the path to potential snaps for Sam Williams over in Dallas. Jorge, I do like the Drake Jackson call, so I'll let you have that one. That was a good call with Jackson. I think he has a pretty solid path, and like you said, playing opposite Nick Bosa is not gonna hurt. But I don't mind Sam Williams, and I think a sleeper to keep an eye on will be Alex Wright out of Cleveland. They really liked him, really productive pass rusher, and I think had he not been from a smaller school, I think he would have gotten a whole lot more attention. So I actually like Alex Wright a little bit from this class too. I think whether they bring back Jadeveon Van Clowney or not, I think he can develop into something, develop into a solid NFL pass rusher too.
Gotcha. And just for future reference, Mr. Williams would like us all to call him D, by the way. His middle name is DeGarrick, and he has requested that all media refer to him as D instead of Sam going forward. So we here at Fantasy Frames like to take this time to apologize to Mr. Williams on behalf of Mike Wohlert and Tyler Heil, because guilty by family now. So sorry, Sam D. You now have our D thumbs up. Logan Hall.
I want to get in trouble too. His name's not D, it's Day. Okay,
Day?
Day, D-E, Day.
Son of a bitch.
Jeez, we're butchering all sorts of names today.
That's what I should have listened
No.
to.
I'm not saying that's actually his pronunciation. I'm sure he calls himself D. Williams. I'm just saying that's wrong, D. Williams. Your name is actually Day Williams, the way it's spelled. Just letting you know.
Oh, so you didn't listen to the thing. So there's actually, okay, I'm just going to have to listen to this. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to listen to the clip of exactly how he wants it pronounced, and we will go from there. A name that we don't have to worry about pronouncing, hopefully, is Logan Hall. Logan Hall has a pretty straightforward.
It's Lugan Hal.
Exactly.
Come on, it's Lugan Hal. Let's go here.
Well, if his name is not confusing, his path to snaps could be, because let's be honest, I don't exactly know where they want to play Hall. There's a good chance that he lines up on the outside. They say that there's a chance that they want to move him more around the entire defensive line. Now, for me, moving around the defensive line means a little lack of production from an IDP standpoint. I don't know where they're going to move him inside and how they plan on doing that. I'm just regurgitating information I've read recently, because you have Vita Vea and you have no more, Ndamukong Suh. So not quite sure what they're going to do, but what are our productions, ideas for Logan Hall? Is anybody high on him? Because I haven't heard his name mentioned too much in IDP circles as far as a must-have.
Yeah, I think it was the first pick of the second round, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Or he was right there.
Yeah,
really not a whole lot of anything. And I think he's a defensive tackle. I mean, that's where he played the majority of snaps. He only played 85 snaps. He only played 85 snaps over the tackle, 21 snaps outside the tackle. So majority of his snaps, he was lining up at the B gap over the guard. So for me, he's an interior lineman. And you put him next to Vita Vea, and you have a couple of bulls in a china shop that are ready to just wreak havoc. But yeah, I mean, Hall is pretty solid player. Playing in a good scheme, playing in a good defense with Todd Bowles. I mean, 6'6", 283. Jesus Christ.
I know.
Oh my God. I mean, good luck opposing guards trying to stop that if he's lining up over your shoulder. He's going to be able to get through those gaps with really no problem. Good move. So if he gets that DT designation, I mean, you could consider him probably you could probably even flip flop Travis Jones. You might as well put him in that third or fourth rank area.
I mean, that's what I've heard. Is it's all over the place. It's up, it's down. It's hard to get an opinion exactly, but he's just someone that we will pay attention to. We'll see as it progresses and we see the snaps. It's a team that should be ahead in games. It's a team that should be able to get to the quarterback, and he might possess a little bit of some upside. But we've got through the first 2 rounds realistically, I think, unscathed. This is where we start to find a little more pushback is from the 3rd round on. I'm going to give you guys each one edge rusher or defensive lineman, most likely we're going to say edge rusher, who's going to have the most IDP impact in 2022. Redraft only. Jorge, I'm going to start with you. You get 1 pick. If you guys pick the same person, great, awesome. It'll keep conversation down. If you don't, then I got to learn about more players. Jorge, who is your 1 pick in the 3rd round that you would take?
Just because I think, assuming he beat out his competition, which I don't think is outside the realm of possibility, the fact that his defensive unit is going to be on the field a long time, that's D'Angelo Malone for the Atlanta Falcons out of Western Kentucky. Look, it's about opportunity. It's about beating out Lorenzo Carter. Both things are definitely possible, and it's about who's pairing off with. We talked about Nikita earlier. Both are really good pass rushers. Both have good win rates. So if I had to pick one, it'd be him.
Nice. And Mike?
I'm going to go with Cameron Thomas from the Cardinals. Chandler Jones gone. Marcus Golden still relatively productive. And then behind Marcus Golden, there's really not a whole bunch of – there's just a bunch of guys. I mean, I don't see how he's – I could see him being well able to hang with Devon Kennard, Dennis Gardeck. They drafted another guy, Myjai Sanders. But if I'm going to pick a third rounder that can come in, play 300, 400, 500 snaps in a season, I would say Cameron Thomas. He can give you 4 to 5 sacks in the season. So, yeah, Cameron Thomas would be my pick.
Nice. We'll piggyback that in to the 4th round and beyond. And you each, again, same rationale. You get 1 person. And this is going to be more probably from a dynasty asset, since 4th round picks, typically hit rates are pretty low when it comes to IDP from the 4th round on. So dynasty aspect. Mike, start us off. What's a name that you might want to throw out there for somebody that's in a dynasty? Maybe for Gator, if he gets to look at his waiver wire, who might you suggest?
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to let my Cleveland bias show out for this one. Perrion Winfrey. My God. If you've seen any of his videos, I think he's ready to go like now. And what is even more fantastic is the fact that Cincinnati and Baltimore passed on him. Mm-hmm. And he's even said that's going to be a chip on his shoulder, and he gets to face those guys twice in a season.
I love it.
Bravo. So for me, he has established he is the bar for the gets us meter here in Cleveland. So as Seamus and Cesaro used to say, he's the bar. Perrion Winfrey is the bar to set for the gets us meter. So Perrion Winfrey, defensive tackle leagues, definitely. I mean, he could come in and just rip bleep up, and I am so looking forward to it.
I know that if there's one person who has their finger on the pulse when it comes to Cleveland sports, it is definitely you, especially from the defensive side. So I will write that name down. Jorge, are you going to stay with your Washington bias, or are you going to go outside your comfort zone and tell us about another name that we may need to circle?
They're picked back to back. If I was going with my Washington bias, I'd say Percy Butler, but I'm going to go with the Giants, Dane Belton. He is definitely being not looked at as anything type of player at this stage. I think one of his comps is like average player, solid special teamers. Blah. Look, the guy is versatile. He plays strong safety. He also has some coverage skill. You have a player who can play both. That means more opportunity to get on the field. We saw Logan Ryan go down to Tampa Bay. I'm in no way saying that he's going to step right in and take on the Logan Ryan role, but he has some versatility. and that gets you on the field more often than not. And the Giants, I don't really see being just a year away from turning it around. So you never know. You never know, but I'm going to go with Dane Belton.
Nice. And I have a name since I'm going to jump in this dynasty format. And it's, you know what? I'm not, because I realized that probably more linebacker role. So I'm going to let you two just take the floor and have that as it is. And I'll save this for next week when we talk about linebackers, because I see him more in a linebacker role. And I'm excited to talk about him. So we'll leave as a cliffhanger of sorts, which is perfect fitting considering we like a movie. We're going to do a cliffhanger, and I'm leaving to go see a movie here in about 15, 20 minutes to see Doctor Strange. What's not strange is having you two beautiful faces to join me for Shoot the Gap again. Mike, you working on anything exciting to tell everybody?
No, I'm boring. I got nothing. I'm not producing anything. I'm just collecting money and not producing anything. So, I'm just raking in the money at 4 for 4 and not doing anything. Perfect. No, but seriously, been doing both, been double dipping with DLF and 4 for 4. So with DLF, I've got, I have my day 2 review. So if you want to see some of my reviews on some of the day 2 picks, also have some IDP sleepers post draft. And then for 4 for 4, I'll be working on my redraft rookie targets. So just released 9 rookie linebackers, which I'm actually surprised that I had that many. So again, just goes to show I think I'm overvaluing these guys again. So Groundhog Day, overvaluing everybody again. But yeah, I got my 9 rookie linebackers and then some of the coaching changes. So working on rankings this month, and just look for some more. Just look for me on 4 for 4 a little bit more at this month. Be doing some video stuff, so they're keeping me busy.
Well, good. You need to stay busy. Idle hands are the devil's toy or something like that. Not quite sure how it goes, but you get the idea. Pretty simple there. You can follow Mike at Mike_Wohlert. Jorge, how about you? You doing anything, or are you just handing off duties for me to do stuff?
A little bit of A, a little bit of B. I finished up a 2022 NFL Draft Dynasty Fallout article looking at the running backs from this year's class. Yes, I was a homer for the Washington Commanders and Brian Robinson Jr. I don't care. Read it. You'll understand why, and I will convince you. I promise you. Other than that, just passing stuff off to you. You are officially, just want to put it out there, we have been divvying up, assignments and making new department heads for the different things we do here. We do Dynasty, we do Redraft, we do IDP, obviously, and we do DFS. And I just wanted to announce that Mr. Nate Markham is now our official head of IDP content here at Fantasy and Frame. So we're really proud of him for all he's done here and look forward to what he has to produce coming up. I do want to say, though, on our Dynasty podcast, Dynasty 365, which always goes live on Tuesdays at 8:30, on May 31st, they're going to have one of us on to talk about IDP Dynasty, or more than one of us, whoever is available. That is a Tuesday. IDP Dynasty content we'll be talking specifically over on the Dynasty 365 podcast on May 31st. So look forward to that.
Nice. Awesome.
Congrats on the 6-figure increase on your raise there, Nate.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I as I sit here with my $6 bottle of wine from Aldi, Jorge, I will send you the invoice. Don't worry. But
nice.
For Jorge Edwards and Mike Wohlert and yours truly, Dr. Nate Markham, not really a doctor, we shall see you next week. Thank you.